You need to be listening to jazz. No, not jazz, jazz. Remember how we learned about something called djent in my progressive metal guide? That's definitely not a genre, but is like a rhythmic style of metal guitar playing. Well, imagine you took the complexity, the free forms, the dissonant chords, and the general weirdness of jazz and combined it with the heaviness, the intensity, and the power of metal. Wouldn't that be neat? I have good news for you. I have 30 albums for you to listen to. This video series is going to be a trilogy. You're going to get 10 albums per video. Some of them you will probably know about unless this is completely new to you, and in that case, that's amazing. And each video, of course, because the way I am, is going to have a different kind of sound to it. The first will be very jagged, distorted, heaviest kind of jazz metal that sounds like you're going through a mental breakdown. Second video will be the more prog rock kind of stuff, lots of synthesizers, but still heavy jazz influence. And then the third is going to be more jazz than metal, but still manages to be heavy in the best way possible. Let's get started. So the first is Gordian Knot by Gordian Knot. I think this is the best place to start. You guys remember in the last video I talked about Cynic. Well, this band has a project with the same bassist, Sean Malone, and this was during a long hiatus that Cynic went through. I think what's important to note about these older albums like this self-titled one is that jazz metal was not trendy or cool at this time. The guys doing this before the 2000s were truly pioneers. Cynic got booed off of many stages because they would tour with bands like Cannibal Corpse, who were strictly the heaviest death metal, and most metal fans weren't ready for this kind of metal. So when you listen to this album, think about how innovative it is and how they paved the way for a ton of other bands that are going to be on this list. Next up, Ink Complete by Spastic Ink. Even more erratic is this band that predates any on this list, a three-piece project called Spastic Ink, and honestly, I couldn't think of a better name for them. This album is extremely disjointed. It's musically impossible to keep up with and does not bother with trying to please the average crowd. If this is your first exposure to music like this, don't feel intimidated. There is plenty more accessible stuff out there. Next up, Exivious by Exivious. Exivious released their last album 10 years ago and they are no longer active, so there's nothing really to look forward to here, but I thought it would be important to show another of the OGs of jazz metal. While their first demos contained vocals, the two full albums that they ended up releasing were fully instrumental, and you can hear the Cynic influence that comes through the songwriting and musical expertise. They also managed to stay fairly melodic throughout their work, despite also using the aggressive, discordant tones of this subgenre. Next is The Machinations of Dementia by Blotted Science. You can tell there is a direct connection from this project to Spastic Ink. Ron Jarzombek, I hope I'm saying that right, being the direct line, but this album feels like it's more closely related to death metal. When you realize the bassist, Alex Webster, is from Cannibal Corpse, it starts to make sense. This album was created about 7 years after Ink Complete, and you can sense the maturity instantly. The production, the compositions have all improved, but the crazy musicianship is still there. Tank Goodness by Panzerballett. One of the groovier albums here, this album is from 2012, and still features a standard lineup of guitar, bass, drums, but also has a horn section with plenty of saxophones involved as well. Here you're going to get a lot more grooves and plenty of jazzy moments, but also distorted, heavier guitars added into the mix. Moscow by Impact Fuze. This trio was formed in Russia in 2011. It's a combination of different studio musicians from all around the world. You can tell this because their playing is so crisp and clean, but they're not lacking in creativity at all. This is their only album, but I would love if they were ever to come back together and create some more stuff like this. Next is Epic Discordant Vision by Kraft. Kraft is a self-described rhythmic mass of heavy riffs that are complemented by saxophone and a synthesizer accordion, using the compositional sensibilities of medieval Gregorian music. Honestly, that's all I needed to hear. I'm hooked, and I'm excited to see what else these young guys can come up with. Next is Rending the Veil by the Antediluvian Project. This is probably the lesser known of any band here. If you've heard of them, you're probably definitely a seasoned jazz metal enthusiast. The use of these lush horns that play ambiently in the background of every track, and you have these meaty guitar riffs and that powerful snare popping in your ear, they deserve more listens, so definitely go check them out. Next is One Step Beyond by Steppenfluid. Whenever I'm craving the groovier styles of instrumental metal, I usually end up coming back to this very album. The drums are just so well recorded. This is one of my favorite snare sounds ever. And they just have a way of making really catchy rhythms while being impressively technical. Next is Through Aureate Void by Five the Hierophant. This is dark. Somehow doom music and jazz work so well together. I haven't quite figured it out. I think it's the huge reverb and the use of saxophone, a music saw, and a zither mixed with the cold, depressing lower tunings of doom. A bonus album, Chaos Remains by Kuru Shimi. Right, I was supposed to only do 10 albums today, but I couldn't leave this one out. This album is 100% improvised, according to their Bandcamp page. I believe it because everything you hear sounds completely based off of feeling and emotions. You never truly know what's going to happen next, but these guys from Australia won't ever disappoint with their playing. Alright, and that's it for today. Those were sort of the heavy metal jazz bands that I think are the most heavy and the most dissonant and the craziest. If you didn't like a lot of these, you might not be into the weird time signatures and intentionally unsettling elements that this section has. And honestly, I get that because this section can be really intimidating. However, you're in luck because the next two videos are going to be a little bit different. Like I said, next one will be more closely related to the modern prog rock sound, but you can tell that the roots are from jazz. So there will be plenty more melodic songs, and it will definitely be accessible for the average listener. Anyways, I'm done here today. I'm trying to put one of these episodes out a week. I've already failed, so I'm doing great. Check out my subreddit for any written articles and material, and I will see you next time.